The Bullseye Cut, a Gwenpool fanfiction written by Indigo's Abyss and read by Ibis Podfic. Summary. Bullseye worked alone. He was not a personable type. He took orders, killed, and hurt whoever he was told to, then took his money and left. As little human contact as possible. So when reports of an apprentice shadowing him arose, questions were asked. The kid was nothing Bullseye would associate with, normally. Pink and loud and unsubtle, cowed only by the threat of Bullseye's knives. Why was she even there? Because Gwenpool knew secrets. Every secret you could think of. And when someone can stop Spider-Man with only a single whispered word, you want them by your side. No matter how much force is needed to keep them there. Chapter 1. The Apprentice. 2 henchmen ran through the lair, bodies piled up around them. They were close to the exit, just one more turn to go and they'd be out of here. They'd escape when every other idiot in this shithole had died. They'd be the ones to make it. Marbles clinked on the walls behind them, warning bells of the monsters and to mow them all down. Bullseye, one of them coughed out as they reached the final door. They just have to get fucking Bullseye involved in this. Well, at least we're just lackeys, the other pointed out, finally opening the door to let them out into the cool night. While he's taking out the boss, we can just sneak out scot-free. They shared a laugh of commiseration as they shut the door behind them, sealing the horrors inside. Bullseye was a force to be reckoned with, but he was only one person. He wouldn't notice 2 small fries sneaking out. A gunshot sounded, and immediately they knew something was wrong. Bullseye never used guns. He preferred more unusual ammunition. His preference in ammo didn't matter, as a bullet zinged through the air, followed by another. The henchmen slumped to the ground, dead. They lay there, blood pooling from their heads, bodies slowly cooling, until finally another person walked out of that door. He was an eccentric figure, dressed in a black bodysuit covered in targets, armed with nothing but a handful of marbles and toothpicks. But that was enough. He didn't need anything more. Once he reached the 2 corpses, he put his hand up as a careful warning and knelt to examine the bodies. He rolled them over, watching brains drip onto the soil with a careful eye. It took him 5 minutes to beckon at his invisible ally with his outstretched hand, and then 10 minutes for the said ally to melt out of the shadows to greet him. This one was just as eccentric as her partner. She wore a white and pink bodysuit, with pink shorts barely reaching quarter down her thighs. Her mouth was all white, with pink eyelashes and a little nub at the back where the mouth didn't seem to quite fit. There was a hole in the mouth that revealed fair skin and a mouth set in a grim line. A rifle was hoisted over one shoulder, and a backpack dangled off the other. You took too long, Bullseye criticized. Speed up your response times. Sure, she mumbled, hunching in herself. Your aim is now less shameful, he continued. But at 20 feet with a rifle like that, you could have hit it dead center. Thanks, I've been practicing, she agreed, mouth curling into a smile. So glad you appreciate my efforts. With a flick of his hand, a card grazed past her cheek, leaving a shallow cut. Don't take that tone with me, Gwen, he growled. Or are you so eager to follow in your friend's footsteps? Gwen flinched, blood streaking down her face. Bullseye paid no mind, already heading out. Come on, we must go back to pick up our money. Bullseye wasn't the kind of person who did partnerships. The guy chafed under temporary team assignments, so it was unthinkable that he would seek out that kind of arrangement on purpose. He didn't have the patience, the cooperation skills, the ability to compromise. The idea of him teaming up with someone else was unthinkable. Even more unthinkable was him taking in a greenie. Bullseye had neither the nurturing instinct nor the teaching flair to ever consider something like this. Gwen could tell that Bullseye had never intended to have a protege, so to speak. She was just a convenient person to keep around. One of the little ways that she was reminded of his spontaneous decision to take her in as an unwilling prodigy was the fact that Bullseye's base was really small. A bare-bones apartment with 3 rooms, barely bigger than the one she and Cecil had gotten, and that place had been bought using a D-class merc's income and no paperwork. Surely someone as high-class as Bullseye could afford better. She had found that living here wasn't so bad, if you made sure to keep out of Bullseye's way when they weren't on the job. It would be as silent as possible when they were on the job. Basically, don't try to communicate with the guy. He'll talk to you when he has orders for you, or criticisms. Gwen had made avoiding Bullseye in that tiny flat an Olympic sport. The 3 rooms were pretty much indistinguishable, all scattered with old takeout weapons and stray dollar bills. One of them, however, had a mattress and garment bags containing duplicates of the Bullseye costumes that pretty much constituted the bedroom. And the second was connected to the main door and had a large window and shitty CRT TV set up there. If rival mercs, prospective clients, or vigilantes attacked Bullseye, they tended to come through there. Gwen really couldn't deal with the stress of that, so she didn't use that room often. The third was the furthest from Bullseye, filled with more boxes than the other 2 were. She liked this one best, not only because she had stacked up the boxes and used blankets and pillows to make herself a little pillow fort thing, though that was a big part of it, but also because it was close enough to the router downstairs that she could leech off their Wi-Fi. She was just getting caught up on webtoons she was following, which were thankfully still the same here. Yes, shock and horror. Gwenpool had other interests except for Marvel. Truly a miracle. She wasn't reading comics right now. She was looking into a stained mirror as she tried to bandage the cut on her cheek. It wasn't as shallow as she thought it had been, and if she left it alone for much longer, she thought it would get infected. This wasn't where she had expected her life to go. Of course, she hadn't expected to ever be in the Marvel Universe at all, but once she had crossed over, she still hadn't thought this would be where she ended up. This being stuck in a storage room in Bullseye's apartment. So how did it turn out like this? Gwen didn't like origin stories. She thought they were redundant. If you had a particularly grueling backstory, your entire character might even be revamped to focus on that origin, instead of your main struggles and priorities. It always sucked when that happened. But she had a feeling that she couldn't just open with her sitting in a tent made of faded blankets in the home of evil Hawkeye. People need context. Well, tough. She wasn't going to tell you anything about how she got into the comic world. It ruined all the fun. Don't think about Teddy and his legs sticking out of that wall. What she was willing to divulge was that 2 months ago, she had been doing pretty well for herself. An independent mercenary with her own pet hacker. She'd even hung out with a whole bunch of her favorite characters. Well, not her favorite. She was still waiting to catch a glimpse of Miles and Kamala. She just knew they were going to be the best of buds. Then someone called in a hit bigger than anything she had ever dealt with before. And she didn't hesitate to snatch it up, despite Cecil and Ronnie's warnings. She had met Bullseye there, talked a bit too much, and then... The scent of a human corpse was still vivid in her mind. The closet was empty except for them. Even so, there wasn't enough space for Gwen to be free of the foul stench. Most of the closet was taken up by Cecil's body. Rigor mortis had already set in for him, and his body was stiff. His head was angled towards her, still frozen in that look of desperation and shock. One eye had been taken out by the playing card Bullseye had thrown at him. It had cleaved straight through the eye socket and hit the brain with a neurotoxin. Death had taken 20 minutes, and it had been excruciating. Gwen should look away from his glossy, dead eye, but she couldn't. She hugged her knees to her chest and rocked herself as her best friend continued to rot in the dull slivers of light. His muscles were contracting, twisting his face into a morbid smile. She had killed people, but she never lingered, never thought about it, never had to watch close up as the corpses decayed. She wanted to get out. This was too close, too tight, even the shallowest breaths were making her gag. She pounded weakly on the door, hoping someone would finally open it. They hadn't. Not the first 10 times, or the 100 times, but whoever was outside that door was her only hope. A day might have passed, maybe 3, she didn't know. Gwen didn't sleep the entire time, but her mind had gone hazy, hunger and heat and thirst consuming her. All throughout it, Cecil just kept looking at her. The door was finally thrown open, nearly blinding her with sunlight. Gwen coughed and crawled out, taking deep lungfuls of fresh, cool air. Compared to the outside New York air, the closet had felt like a sauna. "You get a good look," Bullseye drawled, even as she lay flat on her back, gasping. "Because that's what's gonna happen to you if you don't cooperate with the kid." "I'm college age, actually," she coughed out, voice raspy from disuse. "But never actually went, never even finished high school." "Does it matter?" he asked, standing over her. "You have all the secrets to the universe in your head, and I could use that sort of knowledge. So play along, or end up as your buddy Calvin." "Cecil," she corrected reflexively. "He's dead now, and he's not getting a grave. Doesn't matter what his name was." He was right. It didn't matter in the long run, because Cecil was gone, and it was all Gwen's fault. Why was she so pathetic? She should refuse. She should honor Cecil's memory. She should stick to her convictions no matter what, because this new universe was a chance to do something different, to dig her heels in and chase after her dreams, because nothing could hold her back this time. "Fine," she whispered, curling into herself. I can't give you any identities." "I refuse. But anything else, I'll do it. Please just don't put me in there again." Because even in a different universe, Gwen Poole would always be a coward. "Glad we could come to an agreement," Bullseye smiled, and that was the last thing she saw until the exhaustion finally buried her. She fell asleep. Now, every day was a nightmare. Even if she was just sitting in Bullseye's apartment, whiling the hours away, the fear and the stress were still there, flashes of Cecil's bloody eye socket hovering in her peripheral. She was never safe. She was never going to be safe here.